Hey guys, what's up? So, this is going to be my review of Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi, the final film in the original Star Wars trilogy, and what we thought was the final film in the saga. And again, just like my other Star Wars movie reviews, we're going to go over a brief summary of the plot, then my pros and cons, and then my conclusion. So, let's get started. So, Return of the Jedi takes place 1 year after the events of Empire Strikes Back. Luke, Leia, Chewie, and Lando have to go save Han from Jabba the Hutt, and this is really the first time that you see Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars. No, Phantom Menace and the special edition of New Hope do not count. This was the first time that audiences saw Jabba. And what's great about him is that, he's so not how you would expect, a big shot mob boss or gangster to look. He's not human. He's just this giant freaking slug who just eats and smokes all day. And after they save Han, they go their separate ways. Luke has to go back to Dagobah to finish his training with Yoda, while Leia, Han, and Chewie go back to the Rebels to report on the fact that the Empire is building a second new Death Star, which Emperor Palpatine himself is coming to inspect. And then Han, Luke, Leia, Chewie, and R2 and 3PO go to the Force Moon of Endor on a recon mission to shut down the Death Star's shield generator, which is protecting it. And then the entire rest of the movie is a giant final battle between the Empire and Rebellion, as well as between Luke and Vader and Palpatine. And even though, personally, Return of the Jedi is not my favorite film in the saga, it's still super fun and a super emotional conclusion to the original trilogy. And it's mainly emotional because of, to me, Vader and Luke's whole arc and relationship in this movie. That is the best part of this movie, and it's front and center throughout the whole thing. Because, after they find out they're related, their relationship drastically changes, especially Luke's whole perception of it. At the ending of Empire, you can tell just how clearly shocked he was and how basically everything he knew was a lie. But in this movie, now that he knows for sure Vader is his father, he feels as though he can redeem him and turn him back to the light side because the fact that Vader didn't kill him, just tried to turn him at the end of Empire, that kind of leads Luke to realize and to think that maybe there is still some good in him, and that's Luke's whole goal and purpose throughout this movie is to turn Vader good again, while at the same time avoid being turned to the dark side by Palpatine. And, that whole storyline, as well as the entire third act and final battle, to me is easily the best part of Return of the Jedi because it's so intense and emotional with so much going on. Like the Battle of Endor, for example, which I have on my shirt right here. The Battle of Endor, easily my favorite battle in the entire Star Wars saga because it's so fast-paced with so much going on. Not just the space battle with Lando, leading the assault on the second Death Star, but the battle between the Empire and the Ewoks on Endor and Luke versus Vader, in the second Death Star. So yeah, Vader and Luke's whole relationship is easily my favorite part of this movie and my biggest pro with it. My second biggest pro, however, is, of course, Palpatine. He steals this movie just like how Vader steals Empire. He is just so fun and entertaining and just so evil like he is in Episode 3, but technically this was the first time you saw him, and he's so mysterious and just from his costume to his makeup to his voice, just everything about him is so entertaining. And just like Vader, you can't take your eyes off of him when he's on screen. His whole presence makes him so entertaining and frightening, just like Vader. But what's even cooler about Palpatine is that he's completely at the top of the Empire. He completely outranks Vader. He's Vader's master. That makes him a little bit more interesting. Even though, personally I like Vader more because of his whole, dramatic backstory. But what's great about Palpatine is that, he is the ultimate evil. He is the one pulling the strings throughout the entire saga, which I like how Episode 9, ties into that. but, you know, him being alive in episode 9 is really stupid. You know, he should have just stayed dead, you know, like he is at the end of this movie. But anyway, yeah, I'll talk about that in my review for episode 9. But anyway, no, what's great about Palpatine in this movie is that, like, his whole presence essentially dominates it. And the things that he does and says throughout that entire battle, so good and entertaining. And he has so many great moments and lines, too. Like, especially his, you know, strike me down and your journey towards the dark side will be complete. You know, I love to do his voice, too. He's just, he's so fun. So yeah, Luke, Vader, the final act, and all the action and adventure is easily, you know, some of the best parts of the movie. As are the Ewoks, which I think are super cute, and they don't annoy me like, you know, the Gungans did, you know, even though, like I said, I like Jar Jar, but, like, it would have been cool if it was just him as the only Gungan in the movie. But anyway, what's great about the Ewoks is not just because, you know, they're basically space teddy bears, and funny enough, they were originally supposed to be Wookiees, like Endor was originally supposed to be the Wookiee home planet, but because, you know, of money, they decided, no, we gotta make the Wookiees small, so that's how the Ewoks came to be. What's great about the Ewoks, other than the fact that they're super cute, and in fact, might actually tie, for me at least, you know, as, you know, the cutest creature in Star Wars next to Baby Yoda. Like Wicket specifically, you know, the main Ewok, played by Warwick Davis. Oh, he's so fun and so cool. Even though you can't understand what he's saying, but he's just so loyal and brave, and, you know, basically like the other Ewoks, you know, they're basically a bunch of tribal warriors who inhabit Endor and, you know, help out the main characters, even though they almost cook them and eat them to death. But they end up helping out so much in the final battle with all their, you know, old school technology. Even though I know people to this day complain about, well, they're basically defeating the Empire with sticks and rocks and crap. They shouldn't have been able to do that since the Empire is so advanced. I don't care. To me, you know, what's great about them defeating the Empire is it goes along with the big, you know, underdog theme of the original trilogy. You know, you don't have to have super advanced weaponry, you know, to win a fight. You know, all you need is the courage and belief in yourself, and, you know, have so many others to help you. That's what matters. And that is, of course, one of the core themes of not just the original trilogy, but the saga in general. That whole underdog fighting against the man thing is, you know, one of the most quintessential themes and elements of the saga from the beginning. And even though I like the Ewoks a lot, the whole segment where Han, Luke, and Leia visit the Ewok village kind of drags the movie down, as well as the first part with Jabba's palace. You know, those are some of my cons. You know, the pacing is kind of an issue with this movie. You know, it's not as fast-paced or, you know, super duper fun as the first two. You know, that's why to me Return of the Jedi is the weakest of the original trilogy. But as a whole, it's a great conclusion. And, you know, to branch off of that, another big pro I have with Return of the Jedi is Luke and Leia being brother and sister, which, you know, you're probably thinking, well, why is that a pro for you? Well, to me, it's mainly because, you know, that reveal makes Luke and Leia's relationship so much stronger, and makes Leia as a character kind of like take on a whole new meaning and role in the story. You know, even though you kind of knew it was going to be Leia because them being related is kind of hinted at the end of Empire Strikes Back, especially when they call out to each other through the Force. That kind of gives away the fact that they're, you know, siblings. But the fact that they were siblings was not the plan from the beginning, even though George Lucas says it was. But, you know, if you look at the infamous scene in Empire Strikes Back where they kiss, that is a super strong indication that they were not supposed to be siblings from the beginning. That was not the plan, that they were originally supposed to be a thing. They were kind of supposed to be a couple. And why George made them siblings, I don't know. But, you know, to me it works because, like I said, there weren't many other options, you know what I mean? There aren't many other huge female characters in the original trilogy, so it kind of had to be Leia. Even though I heard that originally Luke's sister was going to be a totally different character that was going to show up for the first time in this movie, which I'm glad they didn't do that because it would have been kind of out of nowhere. And before I get into my cons, I'm going to discuss my last few pros. Firstly, Jabba's palace. Even though it's a pretty long segment of the movie and takes up a majority of it, I still enjoy it because there's so many different like aliens and things going on in his palace, you know, when you first see it, and it's a super fun location. And believe it or not, I like the special edition song Jedi Rocks. I like it a tiny bit more than the original Jabba's Palace song Lapti Neck. Because, I don't know, I'm just so used to it because I grew up with the special editions, but it's a super fun, like, jazzy song, even though they're just singing gibberish. But, yeah, it kind of fits the party vibe of Jabba's Palace, you know? Even though Lapti Neck is slightly a more, I don't know, subtle song. That's another one of my pros, as is the song at the end during the whole Ewok celebration, you know, celebration end title. That's, you know, to me a better track than Yub Nub. Yeah, I think Victory Celebration is better than Yub Nub because it fits the tone and emotion and joy of that victory and that ending, rather than Yub Nub, which is kind of a goofy ass song and makes that ending kind of goofier than it already was. Now, as for my cons, I have more than I did with New Hope and Empire, but they're not super enormous cons and dislikes. You know, they don't take away from my overall enjoyment of the movie. They're just things that, you know, like kind of slow the movie down. Like, mainly the pacing. The pacing of Jedi is my biggest problem with it, similar to Phantom Menace. Like, to me, Phantom Menace and Return of the Jedi kind of have slow first and second acts, but the final act is easily the best part because it's much better paced and, you know, much more interesting as to, you know, what's going on. You know, you're more invested in what's going on by the final act. Like I said, you know, Jabba's Palace and the whole Ewok segment do really slow the movie down because they're not as interesting as the final battles. But, you know, I don't mind them as much as, you know, the first two acts of Phantom Menace. To me, the pacing in Phantom Menace is a super big problem because you're not really interested at all at what's going on because the characters are so hollow and the story is kind of meh. But, you know, I can overlook the pacing of the first two acts with this movie because at least you still care more about the characters and at least you had two movies to, you know, grow to care about them. So, as a whole, even though Return of the Jedi has a lot of issues with pacing, it's still super fun and a super emotional and satisfying conclusion to the original trilogy. And I think arguably a more satisfying ending to the saga than Rise of Skywalker was, even though I liked Rise of Skywalker as a whole, but I'll get to that in my review for it later. But anyway, no, Return of the Jedi, super fun, super emotional, especially the very final scene when Luke sees the Force ghosts of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin, which I hate that special edition change, putting Hayden Christensen in place of Sebastian Shaw. And I also wish we got actual Force ghosts in Episode 9, because it would have been super emotional to see the Force ghosts of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda again, instead of just hearing their voices. But anyway, no. Return of the Jedi, super fun, super emotional. And so, with all that said, I will give Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, a friggin' good, or a solid A. Alright, see you guys later, bye, and Happy New Year.